Hello, friends. I want to share with you some very, very exciting information that I have that reveals God within the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Just to make sure that, no one gets the crazy idea that this goy is coming out of nowhere and pulling this stuff out of his tuchus. I picked up these clips out of a video from a fine rabbi. Now, the original is titled, what is it? The Hebrew language is the DNA of creation, or the Hebrew alphabet, the DNA of creation. You can find it easily enough. It's an hour and a half long, well worth the watch. We've got about 13 minutes here, just to lay a foundation.
The DNA of creation. What does that mean, that the Hebrew language is the DNA of creation? It means like this. The major premise we have as Jews is that Hashem created the world by first creating the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the numbers 0 through 9, and by combining letters together, He created the reality of everything that we know. The first creation was the creation of the Hebrew alphabet. So therefore each letter has a spiritual energy, and that energy combined produced reality. And you might not be aware of this, but we say this in our prayers all the time. Baruch she'amar v'haya olam. Blessed be the one who said, and the world came into existence. He said, He spoke. What does it mean that Hashem spoke? He spoke by combining the letters of the Aleph Beit together. Or perhaps when we make a blessing, what do we say? We might say, you drink a glass of water, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. What do we say? Shako nihiyeh bidvaro, that everything came out through His Devar, His word. It's not just poetry. Hashem actually created letters and spoke those letters together and created reality. That's what we have. And we see a hint of this actually in the Torah. The first line of the Torah opens up and it says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning God created et. The Zohar says that et is aleph taf, which means the first creation, Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning God created et. He created the aleph through taf. That was the first creation. The creation of the Aleph Beit, of the alphabet. So now this is a very interesting premise, because it means that if we know the meaning of the Aleph Beit, we can know reality. That's what it means. Or, truth of the matter is, even if I didn't know the alphabet, but I knew reality, I knew what something meant, I knew what a chair is, I know what a table is, and I know the particular letters and what they mean, I would come up with the language myself. That's how specific it is. That's how exact it is.
Very exact language.
Is that the Hebrew language, every letter is going to mean something. Every letter is like an atom. And when you combine it with the other letters, you have a description of reality. That's the premise for tonight's talk. Okay. Now to get there, we have to have a few fundamentals. Number one, how do we know what a letter means? How do we know what a letter means?
Important.
So we basically have 5 sources. Source number 1 is the actual meaning of the letter. Aleph means an aluf, a champion, something elevated. Beit, is a house. Gimel, gamal, camel. Dalet, dalet, door, etc. What the letter looks like is important, because the shape of every letter is actually composed of other letters. We're going to look at an aleph in a moment. You're going to notice it's composed of 2 yuds and above. Every letter is composed of other letters. So shape is very important. And not just the letters that compose it, but what it looks like is important. Another tool that we have is the numerical value of a number. We know that every letter not only has a meaning, every letter has a numerical value. Aleph is 1, Beit is 2, Gimel is 3, Dalet 4, etc. Chaf is 20, Lamed is 30. Goes up to 400. So numerical values are going to mean something. We also have a famous statement in the Gemara Shabbos when Rabbi Akiva explains letters to us. It's a very important source. And finally, a very, very interesting source the Gemara in Bava Kama tells us is, listen carefully, the first time a letter appears in the Torah, where that letter begins the root of a word, that word will teach me the meaning of the letter. I'll say that again. The first time a letter appears in the Torah, where that letter begins the root of a word, that word will teach me the meaning of that letter. Okay, first time the bait begins at the root of a word in the Torah? Who can tell me? No, Bereshit, but there means in. It's a preposition. It's separate from the root of the word. Bereshit bara. Bara means create. And as we know, bait means a house. Something you build, something you create. There's going to be consistency like that, as we're going to see. Okay? So these are our sources that we have. The actual meaning of a letter. Every letter means something. Shape of a letter. Numerical value of a letter. Description that Rabbi Akiva gives us. And finally, when the letter begins for the first time, the root of a word in the Torah, that word teaches me the meaning of the letter. That's how it works. Okay? Into that. How do we say love in Hebrew? Okay, let's look at first we'll look at the verb. Ehov. Ahav. These three letters are the three letters that Hashem used to create the reality called love. Now let's see if we can understand it. You know, in English, we say very interesting things. For example, we say, I love fish. When a person says he loves fish, what does that mean?
He loves himself.
Right. He loves the taste of broiled fish flesh going down his throat. He doesn't love fish, does he? He loves himself. If a person really loves the fish, what should he do? He should throw it back. So when we use the word love, it really means I love me. That's a very interesting definition, right? Now, it's interesting. Perhaps the Torah wants us to define this concept completely differently. And we might have to turn our heads around for this. Watch the way it works. Let's do a little numerical value, numerical analysis. Aleph. What's the number Aleph? Aleph is 1. Let's skip the Hey. Beit? 2. Now we said that letters not only have numbers, numerical signs, they also have meanings. Aleph, we know, is aluf, something elevated, champion, Hashem. Beit, bite. Gimel, a camel. Dalet, dalet, door. Hey. What does the letter Hey mean? Well, let's see. Let's use our sources. Where is the first time that a Hey begins the root of a word in the Torah, where that root actually is a strong word? Where is that? Can anyone tell me? It's a little difficult because we see it in the beginning of Genesis in a few different ways. One is as a Hey is a definite article, I say, like Hakiseh Shulchan, that's the. But the first time we see it to begin of a root of a strong verb is way deep into the book of Genesis in Parshas Vayigash. When the brothers are down in Egypt, and Yosef turns to his servants, and he says to the servants, listen carefully, Hey lechem ochel. Hey lechem ochel. He uses it like this. The Torah says, Hey. Hey lechem ochel. And you look at the Aramaic translation on the side, it says hav, which means give. It means give. The letter Hey actually means give. Now that's interesting. So look what love is. What's love? When one gives to two. What's love? Love is a function or a product of giving to somebody else. When we say, I love fish, I don't love the fish, I love me. Love means that I'm willing to give to somebody else. And the more you give, the more you love. And that's why the Torah tells us that a mother will love a child more than the child loves the mother. Because who gives more? The child or the mother? The mother spends many, many years and nights giving. A child spends many years and many nights taking. A parent will love a child more than the child loves a parent. Because the more you give, the more you love. When one gives to the other becomes you, and you love. So love isn't just an emotion. Love actually is the process of being in a state of giving. When you're in that state of giving, you will start to identify so completely with the other that you'll feel like that other is you. And that's why, yeah, bro?
Is there another word for love? For like when you say, I love fish, you don't use that?
You don't say, well, you don't say, hey, dog, it doesn't mean anything.
So what do you say?
You said, what would I say? Dog toemli. Tastes good to me. To me. Right? But not that I love it. I love me. That's what love is. Love, from God's definition, is completely the opposite of the way we use it in English. Now, it's interesting, by the way, if I were just to add one more letter here, I would have ahava. Ahava is the noun, which means love. If I do a little numerical analysis, what do I see? Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Bet is 2. What do I get? 13. That's interesting, because that's the same numerical value as this word, which is echad. Echad in Hebrew means Hashem echad. Hashem is 1. Aleph is 1. Chet is 8. Dal is 4. It's 13. Why? Because what's love? When you become me. When I give so much to you that I can't separate between me and you, and therefore I see you as a part of me. I love you. We're one. That's what it is. That's why it says in the Torah, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Love another like yourself. Really, the only love you can have is self-love. But the way I'm going to love you is I'm going to make you part of me. Then I'm going to love you. I'm going to make you one with me. Ahava is 13, Echad is 13. But if you can be part of me, I'll love you. But the way you're going to be part of me is only if I invest in you through giving. That's what it is. If you don't give, there's no love. But let's take it a little deeper, if that's not deep enough.
Yes, let's.
That's the real me, is the soul. Now let me show you something so beautiful about the word Adam. What did we say is the name for God? What's the name for God we use all the time? Well, don't say it, but I'm going to write it out. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. I don't want to pronounce it. We say Ado Shem, right? We say Hashem. I don't want to say the word, but in prayer we would pronounce it. Now, we could break up this word even further. Let's write it out. If I were to spell out a Yud, how would I write it? I'd write it like this. I'd write Yud, Vav, Dalet. If I were to spell out a Hey, I would write it like this. Hey, Aleph. If I were to write a Vav, I'd write it like this. Vav, Aleph, Vav. If I were to write a Hey, I'd write it like this. Hey, Aleph. Okay. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. I'm just spelling out the letter. That's the way you spell these letters. Now let's do a little numerical analysis of this, everybody. Yud is what? 10. Vav is what? 6. Daled is what? Together it is 20. Hey is what? 5. Aleph is 6. Vav is what? 6. Aleph? Vav? Together is 12 plus 1 is 13. Hey? 5. Aleph? 6. Add this together for me. 45. Now that's interesting. You know why? Let's take a look over here. Dalet is 4. Mem is 40. Aleph is? What's the numerical value of man? 45, which happens to be the exact same numerical value of God's name spelled out. What is the essence of the human being? The physical of who we are, or the fact that we're created in the image of God? Coincidence or design? Nice coincidence, isn't that?
Quite a coincidence indeed. For some more coincidences, we'll get into my portion of this little lesson. All right, we have Aleph, first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which, as we were told, is made up of other letters. A Yud, a Vav, and a Yud. Right? Yud, Vav, Yud. Now, Yud is 10, Vav is 6, and Yud is 10. So this equals 26, which is the same numerical value as the holy name. Aleph is first used, right? It's the first time it begins the root of a word. The word is Elohim, which is God. So we have this consistency. And if you watch, the full movie, the rabbi got into this, but it took him about 5-6 minutes to cover it. So aren't you lucky you have me to get you through it a little bit quicker and to show you things that he didn't even know or share. Now, pardon me, one of the things that he does go into is this letter, the letter Mem, which becomes the word Mim, meaning waters. And this is a very interesting letter because it is made up of two other letters. It's made up of a letter Kaf, which equals 20, and it's made up of a Vav. Now, the letter Kaf is the palm of the hand, and a Vav is a tent peg, or a hook, or a nail. And there's another interesting thing about the letter Vav because it has two forms. So you see this form, the normal form used in the middle of the word, at the beginning of the word, it has a value of 40. Right, it's the number of testing or of change. 40 years in the desert. The final form, the Sophite, is just a little bit different. It has a value of 600. Now, the difference between the two is 15. And 15 is Yah, the shortened form of the holy name. So somewhere in the transition in Mem, in going from the medial form to the final form, and going from the form where the nail it's just sort of with the palm of the hand, and then it goes to the final form where the nail is in full contact with the palm of the hand. Somewhere in there, we're going to find out something about God, because this is in his alphabet that he created in his perfection. I think we'll go over to, we'll take an aside. We'll take an aside. The letter Vav is 6, and yes, it's a nail, but 6 is the number of a man. Okay? So a Vav can represent a man. Now, there's something else. A Zayin, which is a sword or a weapon. It's also called a crowned Vav. Right? So it has a couple of forms. It might look like this, but in some texts, it's done up more like that. what would you add to 6 to make 7, which is the number of Zayin? Well, you'd add 1, which is the numerical value of Aleph. So when you add God to a man, right, when you are crowned by God the way that David was crowned, you become a weapon of the holy God for the holy people. Okay, you become the sword, the righteous weapon. The 8th letter, having the value of 8, is Chet, which is considered to be formed of a Vav connected to the Zayin. Right, so the Zayin and the Vav. And the word is a chuppah, the wedding tent. Right, you have the man and you have the woman. And you have the chuppah, the wedding tent. And this represents, to me and my understandings, a goy. This is God's grace and his blessing and his mercy and his protection covering, right? The covering of all of these good things that God gives us. That is the chuppah represented. This does get a little bit important because as the rabbi showed us in Hashem, the holy name, you can spell it out, right? And if you spell it out, it's Yud, Vav, Dalet, Hey, Aleph, Vav, Aleph, Vav. It's interesting that they use that spelling. Value of 13. And Hey, Aleph. And in this form, the whole sentence, right, because you got 4 words here now. Each letter has become a word. Isn't Hebrew wonderful that it can do such a thing? The whole sentence equals 45, which is the same number as Adam. Now, this is just one of 3 different spellings of the word Vav. You can spell Vav with 2 Vavs. And you can also spell Vav as a Vav, a Yud, and a Vav. In addition to this way here. Right, so there are 3 different ways you could actually write this sentence. With different numerical values. Now, now 44 is Dam, which is blood. And Vav Vav represents a physical nail, a physical tent peg, a physical hook. Vav Aleph Vav, which represents the form here, and you get 45. It's 13, which is the number of the noun of love, Ahova. This represents the Creator in creation, according to some people that are probably more learned than I am. Maybe even more learned than a good rabbi. And then this form here represents the immanent God, the one behind all of creation, right? Not manifest, but everywhere. Now, and I really should try and stop saying now so often, shouldn't I? Adam is one of the words that equals 45. There's another word which equals 45. This form of Hashem's name. 45 also equals Ma, which means what? As in, oh, great, and I don't even have it. Where the heck are you? There we go. As in, Ma, Hashem, Tala, Mashugana. Because you can rearrange this to form a cross complete with 3 nails. Now, is this consistent with other things in the Hebrew alphabet? You know, maybe besides this. Maybe this is just here by mistake. Is there anything else? Well, we can consider the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The letter Tav. It has a value of 400. And it's comprised of 2 other letters. A letter Dalut and a letter Nun, which together have the value of 54. That was the value of the Hashem sentence using the Vav Yud Vav spelling. This is Dan. It means he will judge. And then you find in the letter Tav, right, we can take it out to the word Tav. Spelled Tav Vav. Right, it's a sign, it's a symbol. In the old days, it was an X you put on your livestock so that you could recognize it. A mark. But we can take this to another level. We can take the Tav and we can spell it out, Tav Vav. And then we can take the Vav and we can spell that out. Tevavu. You shall nail him. And we have 3 nails. And 3 is the number of covenant. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 4 is the number of completion and perfection. If we add a 4th vav to the front, in biblical Hebrew, when you add the vav, you change the tense, you reverse it. You will becomes you already have nailed him. But where's the 4th nail in the cross above my head? Well, that was in the sign. The other sign that the Romans put over him. Yeshua HaNazaret Vamalech HaYahudim, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. The acrostic of Hashem, which is why the rabbis basically offered the Romans young boys if they would take that sign down or change it. Because that's how scared the rabbis still are today. To say that that man who was such a Jew, such an Israelite, that he had 2 disciples named Judah, one of whom betrayed him. I'm sure there's nothing prophetic in that at all. Not at all. They say that him whose cross is found in Hashem's name, and the only other name in Hebrew that I'm aware of that you can make a cross out of is Yeshua's name. But when you do that, you get 12 letters instead of 10. 12 for each of the tribes. 10 for the commandments. Because he's the master of both of them. There are other things in Hebrew. You take the letter Kaf. What's it made out of? 2 other letters. A Resh, which is a head. And again, we have a Zayin. So you have a head with a sword coming out of its mouth. The way it's written in Revelation. The revelation of Yohan. I mean, what more can I say? How much more proof? How many things are there in the Hebrew alphabet that I'm not even thinking of right now? How many ways are there to tie that language back to a man that the rabbis say is boiling in hell in a pit of excrement? Because he dared to claim to be who he is, was, and will be. I'm Archon 888, otherwise known as Tearakan and Ha'araka. And these are interesting times.